right, welcome to Living in the Past, where three middle-aged dudes relive their past by enjoying the pop culture of their youth. You see what I did there? Devin, are you ready to wander in the sweaty jungle, shoot a minigun, cover yourself in mud, and be hunted by an extraterrestrial?
Let me grab my asthma inhaler first here, Jeremy, and take a couple puffs. And all right. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to lock in a grip, have our biceps flexed, and I'm ready for this. Let's do this.
Beautiful. Hey, we convinced Carl the Intern to come back and fact check us.
Yeah.
Carl, do you have a fun fact about Predator to start off the show?
I do, and honestly, I didn't know till you asked me to get a fact. I was looking for some things. I honestly did not know this till yesterday.
Whoa.
And I think Jeremy knows about it because some of the links you sent as far as the reading. But Devin, I'm going to ask you: do you know who originally was in the Predator suit, but ended up not getting it, being in the Predator suit in the final cut of the movie?
You know, I don't. So I am just going to try to use my pop culture knowledge to kind of hone in on this. And I'm going to say, you know, although the film that this person was in was about 7 years prior to the release of Predator, I'm going for general body shape and course. So I'm pulling from the cast of the fantastic faux disaster film Airplane. I'm going to go with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Nailed it.
That's great.
Nailed it. No, I'll tell you this. I'll give you some hints, and I think you'll get it too.
Okay. All right.
The alien ended up being physically imposing, but it was originally going to be an agile fighter more than just instead of a bulky, just intimidating creature.
Yeah.
You went back as far as a movie before. If you think movies that came after this and maybe an action star, and the clue that'll get it for you, this character has already been on Living in the not this character. This actor has already been in Living in the Past. We've already had some big discussions about this actor.
Oh, well, then it's got to be Corey Feldman.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it.
On like 5 episodes of the show. I mean, no other actor has got that kind of range.
I got you, but like can do agile fighting.
It's not
Lost Boys. He's agile, man.
Oh,
he's,
well, okay. It's not my mother-in-law. I'm stumped.
That's fine. Yeah. It would have been the best Van Damme moment. It could have been that he was in the suit, and but eventually was fired or parted ways or whatever.
Whoa!
And there's so many stories.
Wow.
And they, but I read it. I saw that fact. I was like, nope, somebody made that up. But it's like the more I look into it, it's everywhere. It seems like maybe everybody knows it. I didn't know it. So
I did not know that. Wow. Well, that's great. Although I'll confess that I'm a little disappointed that it wasn't Corey Feldman because that would have been pretty amazing.
Well, he could have made the character himself because his character Friday the 13th was into makeup and monsters. So killing two birds with one stone.
Yes, indeed.
There's some 6 degrees of separation there somewhere, I'm sure.
Kevin who? Yeah, give me Corey Feldman.
Carl, when did you first see Predator?
I think I saw this as a video rental again at someone else's house. It was so this is 87, so I was probably 16 at the time it came out. I could have driven, but you know, I think the late 80s, you'll get me like driving myself to the movies. If you get more late, and we're kind of at the end of the 80s, but you know, 88, 89, early 90s. But for a while, I was seeing movies just kind of as rentals.
Wow. Yeah.
Devin, when did you see it?
It was in the theater that summer. In fact, a friend of mine had seen it before, and his words, "You need to see this. This is Schwarzenegger's best film," which in reflection, I'm not sure how much of a prop that is. But I will also say, now here's talking about little trivial bits. Predator is the first VHS movie I ever owned. There was I know young listeners, go ask your grandparents about this. There was a time where like you couldn't even purchase films, and then I was actually in a Walmart in the Midwest, and they had movies for sale, and I lost my mind. grabbed Predator, grabbed The Untouchables. Those were the first two films that I ever actually owned.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, you must have had a good job
because I saw.
Because that was before.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they got to the point where it was like you could buy every movie that ever came out, but it was like, wow, do I want to drop this or do I want to eat this month?
Yeah.
For a movie sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, which is why I was skinny then and not so much now.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Jerry.
No, it's okay. I have nothing really to say. But I will say this. It's weird. I saw The Running Man, which came out the same year, in the theater, but I did not see Predator until videotape. So I saw it at a friend's house. Kid named Todd Ray. It was like a Saturday afternoon, and he was like, "Hey, you want to watch this movie?" And I'm like, "Yep." And we didn't know what we were getting into.
Wow.
And by the end of it, we thought we had seen the greatest film ever committed to film.
Clearly,
we thought it was just the most brilliant thing. And then we ran out into the woods behind our houses, and we were hunted, and we did the hunting.
Yes.
So, you roll around in the mud?
So it was, got a little mud. We went all method, all method in this.
Nice.
And
so you took steroids too. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were lifting weights in his garage, then getting a good pump on, and we were going out. I was in junior high school, so I was a little bit younger than you guys, so I was at the, hopefully seniors in high school didn't go play in the woods, but 7th grade you can still do that.
Wow.
You can still do that. Arnold, was really reluctant to do the film, which was shocking to me. It seemed like he was wanting to do everything at that point in his career, but he was reluctant because it was a star vehicle for him.
Yeah.
And he was like, what if this had a more ensemble approach? It wasn't just one man against the enemy, but instead it was a team. And of course, in the development, he was referencing the Magnificent Seven, the Wild Bunch. And then after several rewrites, Schwarzenegger jumped on board fully and committed to it. And I don't know about you guys. I think he made the right call. This cast is bonkers. And so you got Arnold Schwarzenegger as Dutch, Carl Weathers as Dylan. You have Bill Duke, love Bill Duke. He's Mac, the sergeant of the team. Yep. Richard Chavez is Pancho. Jesse, the body Ventura.
Yes, the body
is Blaine, the minigun. I think he called it Old Painless.
Yes,
I think.
yes.
You have Sonny Landham as Billy, the tracker scout. Shane Black, the writer, who would later do the most recent iteration of Predator, which is awful, by the way. But Shane Black is Hawkins, tells one of the most cringe-inducing jokes ever in the helicopter at the beginning. Yeah, he does. And that's pretty much the team. For you guys, what do you think of this cast?
I am so down with this cast, and I think not being the cinephile growing up, but just enjoying movies. A lot of these are just, I guess, recognizable character actors, both before and then certainly after the film. But the way that this team gelled together on screen was legit. And as a, I guess, diehard, now WWE, but WWF fan, who doesn't want to see future Governor Jesse the Body in there with a freaking minigun? Come on. With some chaw between his cheek and gum, give it to me all day.
A ton of, oh my gosh. That was a huge wad he put in there.
He was he went for it. Yeah, I know Jesse Ventura was in Vietnam. I think he was a veteran of Vietnam.
Because he was a SEAL, is that right?
So I don't know if he was or not.
Okay.
I don't know if that's some sort of like
urban legend.
Hey, I wanna be, be a little bit cooler than I really am.
Yeah.
I know he was in the Navy, but I don't know. I don't know if he was like special forces, like we had heard. I do know. I think Sonny Landham, who plays Billy, I do think he might be a veteran as well. but I could be wrong. I know he has Native American. He's like half Cherokee. He's from Georgia. Played at the University of Georgia in football.
Wow.
Like those are some things I know. He ran for before he died. He was he ran for he wanted to be a governor too.
Yeah.
Devin and Carl, and didn't quite work.
He
out
would have made a
for
good
him.
one.
So yeah, he was boy. I don't know if you read the oral history.
Some of it.
That dude, Sonny Landham was out of control. They had to hire a security guy to go with him because he would get so drunk and out of control.
Nice.
While they were filming, that they had to calm him down. It's a great cast, and they're all larger than life. Even some of the, even Poncho, he's still he's memorable, and I think that's one of the things that makes Predator really stand out to me is the cast is so likable and so cool, especially when you were a teenager. These are guys that you just they're cool. I mean, you have a guy carrying a minigun, which by the way was operated by two guys off camera. It was such a production just to get that thing to work. So, I mean, it's a great cast. It's one of the best ensemble action movie casts of the 80s, if not the best. I can't think of what would compete with that.
Well, I think this is part of it.
Is there a standout?
Well, so here's what I think. In so many of these films where it's generally whittling the cast down to the one final person.
Right.
I think here's one where each of these characters had enough going for them where you were
right.
You didn't want anybody to necessarily get killed, and it was so much more difficult to figure out okay, who's going to be next. And so I think that's one of the things that really helps Predator as a film overall, that these cast characters are truly likable. There's no douche in the group,
and they weren't They weren't just one note stereotypical all the same military dude. It was Bill Duke and Jesse Ventura, Blaine and what's his name? Mac, Blaine and Mac. They were very, they were different races. They had different sort of personalities. Jesse, kind of more in your face, and Bill Duke just very reserved. But they were friends, and they had each other's back, and they were different. And then you had, they took it more serious. You had others that were cutting up. You had kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to manage all these personalities, and Billy is sort of, being very somber and being that tracker that sort of. He knew what was going on before everybody else did. I think it was very diverse. They took some time to make individual characters instead of these are all military dudes. That's all we're putting into it. So I think that helped as well.
Yeah.
The diversity is really interesting because I'm thinking through 80s action movies, and it's a pretty diverse group of guys. You have a half Native American, you have African Americans in the cast. I think it's a way cooler and way more important action film than most of the action films of the late 1980s. I just think there's a reason why it is so popular, and one of those reasons is its director, John McTiernan. I mean, there's constant debates about is he one of the best action directors of the the 80s and early 90s. Listen to he had a run that was pretty impressive. He did Predator, Die Hard, The Hunt for Red October. He also made The Last Action Hero, which I think is underrated.
I agree.
And then The 13th Warrior, which I also think is underrated. I think there's a lot of great stuff in that. Is he, the question I think is worth thinking about is he the best action director of the 80s, early 90s?
I think you have to put him in that category, right? I mean, you can't talk about 80s action films without bringing up Predator and Die Hard. And I mean, I guess we can kind of talk about whether Hunt for Red October is an action movie. It certainly has less testosterone than this one, but I think I mean, those are the classics, right? I mean, we're getting ready. We're recording this the beginning of November. We're getting ready to watch perhaps the greatest Christmas movie ever, which is of course Die Hard. So I mean, I think that yes, he has to be on the Mount Olympus of 80s action directors.
He's very
absolutely.
He's very as far as the quintessential 80s type of action movie. You would say yes. I mean, he had the guns, the muscles, and all that other stuff. More macho action movies. I mean, and he did more of them, I guess, than other people. If you start going into, say, Spielberg with Indiana Jones, if you kind of broaden that action movie into those sort of things, he's still maybe the best 80s, with in quotes, the type of movies we saw in the 80s action movie director. Right. And still, had more. So, like, Cameron might be on that list, Donner, Carpenter, Cameron. So those people are on the list, but they also sort of delved into other types of movies more, so they weren't just action movies, so that's not all they had known for them. So but even putting him in the field with Spielberg and all those other people, he still probably is the best as far as an action movie in that time period.
Yeah, it was really interesting to me just when it dawned on me that he made Predator and Die Hard. It was probably like early 90s when I'm like, okay, who made Predator? Okay, like I like Die Hard. Who made, the same guy? What? Like, it was just kind of this mind-blowing, like, and no one talks about McTiernan as much as they talk about some of the other, like, action directors. I mean, people still talk about, Donner passed away recently and made the Lethal Weapons. Of course, he made Superman. People talk about him a lot more than, like, McTiernan, and I think McTiernan needs to be in the conversation just as much. And I do think Predator, Die Hard are probably in the top 5 best action films of the 80s. Yeah, I think it's. Yeah. I think Die Hard specifically is unassailable, and I can't wait to do that on Living in the Past. But let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll kind of dig into the movie a little bit and just talk about some of our impressions, and especially in the opening of the film. So we'll be right back after this break. So Predator starts off with I don't know about you, it made an impression. So the setup is, a cabinet member and his aide have been shot down over guerrilla territory. So somewhere in South America this has happened, and a mercenary team has been hired to rescue them, led by Arnold Schwarzenegger's Dutch. And I love the intro because you have the helicopter land, the guys getting out of the helicopter, and they're all in their unique outfits and they're jacked. And then you have, of course, the famous Carl Weathers, Arnold, let's flex for do a open air arm wrestling. Yes. Like, I love this intro. I love the alpha maleness of it.
Show me your penis without showing me your penis. Yes.
That's really what it is. And so, we're introduced to all these characters right off the bat. What do you guys like about the opening, the intro?
We jump into the action more or less, right? I mean, we're just right. We, as the viewers, are quite literally dropped off in the jungle. They don't waste time building up the plot, and I think that's essential to most action films. But I think that with this cast, like we've alluded to, it's important to hit the ground running, because in order for us to actually dig this cast the way that I think most viewers do, is we've got to spend some time getting to know them very quickly. So I'm totally down for the way that this hit the ground running.
Yeah. And it lets you know who the star is, of course. I mean, we know, but it's like everybody gets out.
Yeah.
Then we got to wait on Arnold to puff that cigar and his big old glasses on. But, like Devin said, a lot of action movies would start with, like, the summing up of some other adventure from the hero, how they, just to show how proficient they are, how capable they are, how tough they are, and kind of like a beginning of a James Bond movie, and then we slow back down and get into this movie. But it's like we have two movies, and this is one of the times this and Terminator 2 come to mind. But sometimes I wish trailers, as much as we love to see trailers and get excited about it, I wish trailers didn't give so much of the movie away sometimes. And I know they're trying to hit that first opening weekend box office, so they give so much away. But if you came into this movie not knowing that there was an alien as the antagonist for a little while, at first you're in just action movie set in kind of a war-torn country, and it's good. It's good. It's action-packed. It's like two movies, and suddenly halfway through, we've kind of summed up the action, straight on human action war fight, and now we moved on to something that's more, individual man against the wild alien sci-fi part of it, and it could sneak up on you and stuff. And Terminator 2, when they told you that Arnold was a good Terminator, all in that one as well, it's like if you watch how the director and everything,
Right.
the writer set the movie up, it's like, if I didn't know that to start with, that would have been a really cool moment right here in the movie where I was like, wait, hold on, what's going on?
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I regret about it, but I understand, why they do it. It's about the money and trying to get people to come right away instead of word of mouth. And so, but that's one thing I wish we did differently to a degree.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, the trailers definitely, like, we just played it at the start of the show. I mean, just watch it, I'm like, okay, they give that away, and that away. That's really sucky, and that was the trailer from 1987. So it's really bizarre that those choices were made. I mean, you would think in 1987 by that point you could just say Arnold, Carl Weathers, they're in a movie, action movie. People would sign up for that.
You could have just
Carl
sold
Weathers at that point. I mean,
you could have just showed old
Weathers
Painless.
is probably. Yeah, you could have shown the gun. I mean, there's just so many things you could have done.
And people said, I'm in, I'm going.
To hide. Yeah, I think so. And it's just weird that they didn't do that. I think there's little hints, you're talking about just like how awesome they are. The General Phillips, who's hired them to do this, he says there's just some back and forth about who they are and what they've done. And it's really established that creates some tension later that they're like a rescue team. They rescue people.
Yeah.
They're not assassins. And so that sort of comes up in the conversation. But essentially they're like, okay, we're hiring you for this mission, but we're going to send your old buddy, Dylan, who's an old colleague, but he's a CIA guy and he's coming with you. And you can start to feel that tension right off the bat. And I like that a lot. And then you're in the helicopter, music blaring, going into the jungle.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just like intro, bam, we're in.
Yeah.
And it really does feel like we're in the helicopter getting out into the jungle. And I love how McTiernan shoots it and just places us in it with these weird and interesting characters. I think this is one of the stronger action movie setups of the 80s and early 90s. I don't know, Devin, do you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think just going on what we shared earlier, like we're in it from the very beginning. That it's not a slow paced build up. I mean, for as much as I love Die Hard is a much slower build up than Predator.
Right.
And so I think that this is a treat we get. But let me also throw this in. I don't want to go through this episode without bringing, quite frankly, one of the other characters of the film that I think is just as powerful as any of the actors we see, and that is the score by Alan Silvestri. The Predator film score it's one of those things that just makes this film that much better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it starts as that first, like, getting off the helicopter right at the very beginning. I mean, you have that kind of music, like kind of driving it and establishing kind of that tone. And I totally agree. I'm glad you mentioned that. And it really plays a great role as the film progresses, especially as the Predator starts to attack and hunt them.
Yes.
It's really, really good stuff. It's interesting when they get into the jungle, like, they pretty quickly find it's like a team of Green Berets that have been skinned alive and they're hanging from a tree. And, you have Billy starting to track all these people and trying to figure out what's going on. And Carl, like you were talking about, there's kind of this, if you didn't know, there's this tension, like, who is so horrible that they would do this to, other human beings.
Right.
And there's that a little bit of element of mystery and tension, and I really like that. If you take that trailer off the board, and you don't know an alien is killing them all.
Right.
The violence didn't bother me as a middle school kid, junior high school kid, but I had some friends that were my same age that they were pretty grossed out by, like, guys being skinned alive, hanging upside down. The violence, of course, never bothered me.
Right.
It still doesn't bother me, but it is what it is. So you almost have this, like, Carl, you were mentioning almost like these two movies, because you have this like action movie, and they end up going and finding this encampment, and they fight these guerrillas, they wipe them out. I personally think you have to have this scene to make the movie work, because you need to showcase these guys as badasses, and that they're kind of this unstoppable force. What do you guys both, and I'll start with you, Carl, like, what do you think about this kind of attack on the encampment? What did you like about it? Was there anything you didn't like? Just what are some of your thoughts, and do you think we needed this scene?
We needed the scene, and the amazing thing of it is like, there was 7 of them, counting Carl Weathers.
Yeah.
And he's really not really part of the unit, but he's taking, he's helping, but it's one of those things where they have the element of surprise, okay, but they wipe out a ton of guys, and you're like, okay,
yes,
and you think they're done, and then there's more running out over ridges and through buildings, and it's like, good grief, there are like 30 to 50 people in this compound, and these 6 or 7 guys are wiping out, and and a couple of Russians trying to take off in a helicopter. So they at some point you could say, well, element of surprise, they could take on maybe twice, but it's like they just keep and nobody really even gets close to getting hurt, a little bit. So that part was good, and the one thing I guess during that which I didn't like was, and it's such an Arnold thing, and it's kind of funny. It's almost like. You talked about you will talk about how many rewrites and stuff they did. You talked about earlier how there was one vision and then they kind of changed as they went. The throwing the machete at the person and pinning him up against the post and like stick around. That's an Arnold thing. That's in the movies, but it almost didn't fit in this movie. It's like it was like this was kind of an un-Arnold Arnold Schwarzenegger movie to a degree. And it's kind of like they probably had 10 of those, and then they went through a pass and wiped them out. Like, oh, we forgot one. But it was in the movie, so that kind of, because you could take this one, even though it is science fiction and crazy, you could take it a little more seriously than maybe some of the others. But that just sort of threw you back took me out for a second of the cheesy Arnold lines.
Yeah, it's interesting because you have the stick around, but then my favorite is the Poncho Blaine exchange where it's like, you're hit, man, you're bleeding, and Blaine's like, I ain't got time to bleed. And Poncho's like, oh, okay, and shoots the grenades up. He's like, you got time to duck? So I get the stick around stuff. I get it. I get it. But I think there's this, we know Arnold. Right. Like I actually don't think he needs to say that. Right. But I think like the Poncho Blaine exchange, some of the things that happened in that attack, it really helps us to kind of like identify who these people are. And kind of latch on to him, because I definitely remember my group of friends had their favorites. A lot of them loved Mac. Mac was a favorite, and Blaine was the other. Yeah, and Billy was in there as well. But like in my group of friends, it was Blaine and Mac. But I think it's moments like that Devin was talking about earlier. Like you kind of latch on and you care about these guys, and they're so unique and different. And I think this is adding that flavor. Devin, what do you think about this kind of attack on the encampment? What did you like about it? What did anything rub you the wrong way?
I think it's necessary in the sense that it's our first peek into Carl Weathers' character is up to something. And I think he's going through the papers that were kind of tossed about after the attacks. I was like, oh, this is the jackpot. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, that was part of zero conversation that we had privy to as viewers. And so I think it's that key linchpin to set it up that like it's not just the predator that they're going to be battling, but it's like the enemy within, right? All of a sudden there's added dynamics, which I think is super cool. I will also say, here's what I love about that little setup. We, meaning my wife Rachel and I, went to Puerto Vallarta for our honeymoon, and that set you can walk through. They still have the chopper there. They still have it's actually cool. It's actually a restaurant now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but you can actually go to the set. And so, while there's a bunch of newlyweds down there kind of geeking out on one another, I'm just like, I'm going to go take a little tour and kind of relive my Predator experience as a youth. I'll be back. And it's kind of cool because you can literally kind of like walk through that battle scene, the various parts of the stairs and the cliffs and everything else that was nearby. So it's necessary, if for nothing else. Yes, one, it's going to show that these guys are badass, which we need to see because that obviously demonstrates how much more powerful the Predator is. And then again, we start to see that Carl Weathers' character starts to be exposed as this liar.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, yes, this is a fun action movie, but like it's tapping into like stuff going on in the 80s at the time.
For
of course,
sure.
The United States government's involved all in South America in different ways. You can think about El Salvador. You can think, there's a lot of, so when you have CIA guys, because it basically, it's not a cabinet minister that Dutch is getting. It's a CIA guy. Mm-hmm. And so that's when he starts to, you find the suspicion with Dylan, and it adds to that. But it's also, as an audience member in the 80s, it's tapping into kind of like, I can see that makes sense to an audience member in the 1980s and even today. But I think it does tap into this realism of, even though it's this fantastical alien hunting them, there's this like, that's believable. I buy that. The Predator sees this fight go down, and this is kind of what attracts him to this team to hunt. And you have, I think, one of the more interesting things where you have you start to see Billy's kind of like his abilities, because he's kind of picking up on things.
Right.
Something's off.
Yeah.
But you're also introduced to, right around this time, they do take a hostage, and that's Anna, this gorilla hostage. And then you have kind of the first casualty, the first death of the team. She kind of gets away, and Hawkins chases after her, and the Predator just takes him out like that. And I love the sequence because Anna sees kind of the camouflage Predator and how he blends into the background.
Yeah.
And, you have one of the better lines that I think in the movie where they're like, what happened? And she's like, through interpretation, it's basically the jungle came alive and took her.
Yes.
Or took him. And so it's such a great line. I love the idea, because it's at this moment you're like, oh shit, they're being hunted. This is not good.
Yeah.
And it's the fun, oh shit. It's like, oh, this is gonna be great. There's something about the idea of being chased, being hunted, that is compelling to a entertainment audience. Because it's clearly it's at work here. Why do you guys think that's so compelling though? Devin, what do you think?
Yeah.
Like, why is this being hunted, like, story trope, so compelling to an audience over and over and over again?
Well, I think there's two things at play here. First and foremost, I think that's compelling. We did a show recently about Friday the 13th, which is, in essence, very much the same thing. It's just distilled down a little bit more. But I think that there's something compelling to that, because we can, if we identify with the actors that are being hunted, I think that adds to our viewing experience. So I think there's something like that. Who hasn't at one point or another at various levels felt like they had to escape something, right? And that could be something that we dream about or whatever else. So I think that that's very much something that taps into our psyche. I think the other thing that's at play here is, and push back on this, guys, but I don't recall any Schwarzenegger film prior to this time where actually we see him kind of get a little concerned. Usually, like, he's so in control and he's the dominant one, and we actually see like this start to unfold throughout the film where he actually feels a little scared. And so I think those two things at play are really what drives this film, is, in my opinion, his best.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think because in our minds in '87, we think Commando.
Yep.
Right? Like, and we need to do that on the show at some point. But like, Commando is like Schwarzenegger. It's a 90-minute film of Schwarzenegger knowing exactly what to do and doing.
Yep.
And he kills everybody. He's never freaking out. He's just taking care of business, right?
Right.
I agree. I think the fear, confusion, what do we do? His buddy's getting knocked off. I think, say what you will about Schwarzenegger's acting, he is a phenomenal action star.
Yeah.
And, you're buying in. Like, you're buying into the team. You're buying into, like, these guys are super powered in a sense, but they're up against something they can't overcome easily. And the acting is seen in these scenes leading up to kind of that final showdown between, Arnold and the Predator. I totally agree. Like, Carl, what do you think?
Well, I agree with Devin too that it is different. It is cool to see not only Schwarzenegger scared a little bit, but they all are. Even Billy's like, we're all gonna die. You know, So, and he's not, but it's
buzzkill.
It's different than the horror genre where it's like we're gonna die and we're freaked out about it. It's like, well, we're gonna die, but we're gonna face it head on, you know, and we're gonna give it a fight. And you always do like to see. It's kind of like in life, there are potholes, there are things, and you see other people failing and you have failures in your own life, but it's like, you know, but there are times where you can be the one to push through if you persevere or whatever, maybe with a little luck, but you know, don't give up, kind of the thing. But I also like about this movie, you mentioned Anna kind of coming in too, and then also back with other parts of the movie. It's like this movie, what I do like about it is they don't, this individual trying to, you know, fight his way through, or this group, but it's coming down to an individual fight his way through against insurmountable odds. We don't get bogged down with a movie trying to preach to us about, like, you know, we could have had so many different political statements in this movie about who's right and who's wrong. Right. And I leave really not thinking anybody is particularly wrong or right. You know, Carl Weathers comes across as a little bit of a, you know, but it's like, but he says has he stopped an invasion? I don't know. Was it something that we had to do? We don't want to talk about it at our cocktail parties deep down. We want him on that wall. I don't know, you know, but, you know, and also I think we feel for Anna in this thing, but is she, you know, I think she's somebody sympathetic, like, well, this is her country and yet we're kind of coming in, and those are all there, but we're allowed as the audience members to sort of like fill in those blanks as we want to and not be told this is the right person, this is the wrong person, this is whatever. So it's like, it just sort of like, and really, this is not why we're here. We're here for this movie to discuss this other thing. And then Anna kind of comes across too. It's like, she looks like she's, you know, sweaty in a jungle, where any other movie at that time, we would have had a beautiful woman with hair flowing in the breeze, you know, even though she's been living in the jungle, you know, fighting in these circumstances, they would have made her look super attractive at the time. It's like, well, no, you know, that's not how reality is. If you're living in the jungle, you're going to be sweaty. Your hair's going to be messed up. Yeah. So all these things, it's like it just sort of didn't take you out of the movie with all these superfluous things. You felt like you know, this was stuff. I don't know all the details, but you know, I can go with it, and we're really not here for all that.
But I will say, if you want political commentary, just stick around for Predator 2.
Do I have to?
Because that's all that movie is.
Yeah. Yes. Gosh. Yeah, we need maybe that's a Patreon episode where we discuss that. It's interesting, like, because you're talking about Anna, and I actually think she's a helpful character. I've had friends, and I've even read, you know, critics like think she shouldn't even be in there, but I actually do. And you have several things happen. You have, and we got to talk about this also, but like, you have Max seeing Blaine get killed, and then he picks up the minigun, and everyone joins in and they mow the forest down. Or the jungle down. So we got that scene. But then you have Anna right after that, when they start to set traps for the Predator. She sort of adds some context where she's saying, like, this has happened before. I've come across like corpses in the jungle that are similar. Like, so she's adding almost like this understanding to what has happened. Also, she doesn't fight, and because she doesn't, the Predator doesn't really deal with her. Like, he doesn't like want to kill her. So some really interesting, it adds some things to the Predator. Like, almost she helps us understand the Predator's own like moral compass. Right. But then you have this juxtaposed also with this like ultra violent team that literally cuts down a jungle with their weaponry. I loved the scene where Blaine gets killed. Matt comes in, picks up the minigun, because I liked Blaine. And when I see Matt come in to kind of like, you know, fight the Predator and just go nuts, I love that scene. It's a pretty memorable scene. A lot of people that think about Predator think about the scene with the minigun and then everyone joining in and just chopping the jungle down. Carl, like, is this scene one of those scenes for you? Is it one of those like, yeah, this is a pretty incredible scene? I just don't know why I like it so much. Is it just the sheer power of it, or like, what do you think?
Yeah, it's one of those things, and I've not served in the military, and I've not, you know, but I knew a guy, worked with a guy who had been in Vietnam, and he said they'd just have a mad minute every once in a while. They would just, on their kind of within their fort, just shoot for a full minute, just everything to just let the enemy know what they had. And so there is a lot of power that it can be intimidating, but you kind of put that out there, and it's like these guys weren't doing it for show. They were actually trying to hit something, and for a little bit at least, they don't think they've hit anything, and they have just, as Mac says later, it's like, I shot straight and I shot with everything I had, and nothing human would survive what we just did, and we got nothing. So it's kind of one of those things that it takes these people who are very confident with these weapons and suddenly like, look, we're in trouble because nothing should be able to stand against this. Yeah. And then also Anna is helping too, because they're not paying attention to, it's like they're looking for blood or whatever, and she notices something different because she's from there. That helps. Like, okay, you guys missed this stuff. Y'all might think it's in the jungle all the time. No, this is not. And, so, and again, it's like you said, she's seen this stuff in the past when it was, the older ladies talk about things happen, people disappearing when it's hot. So it's like a time period when I guess it's more conducive to the predators coming. And also that it kind of, if there's any political commentary, it's just kind of like, these forgotten places in the world, things go on and we don't necessarily care about them. So to us, they didn't really happen because we're not paying attention to the small people. So, but anyway, I like that part.
I think another thing here too, though, right? When we have this scene of them just basically doing deforestation, we also have to remember, so this is 1987. So the age of these actors, as well as the age of the viewers that are the age of the actors, right? That's a generation that actually fought in Vietnam. And so I think that there's this allusion to Vietnam and the Viet Cong there, where literally there would be these instances, these firefights in the jungles of Vietnam where they would just unload weapons and there'd be there wouldn't be any bodies to collect afterwards. And so I think that it's this may not be a political position, but I think that for the viewing audience of that age, that I think that there's some things that they would definitely, resonate with.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You get in the scene, the line, if it bleeds, we can kill it, like that idea. And then they set up the kind of the traps for the predator. And you have this whole little montage scene of them flexing as they, pull the ropes and the trap. They set all the traps and they're all sweaty and jacked, and they probably like did bench presses and arm curls right before. But you have this fun scene of them getting ready. Of course, the predator they spring the trap. The predator, I think, wounds Poncho. Poncho gets wounded. I think the order of events is Poncho gets wounded. The predator goes off. Mac is just driven by rage for what happened to his friend.
Right.
So Mac runs after it. Dylan has this kind of redemptive moment where it's the scene's so chaotic, but Dylan basically says to Dutch, go. Get out of here, take your guys and go. I'm going to go with Mac, and we're going to get this thing.
Right.
And so Dylan runs off, and you have Mac and Dylan against the Predator. I freaking love the scene. I love Carl Weathers. I've always loved Carl Weathers. I had just seen – I remember Mac from Commando because he's in Commando. So is Billy. Billy's in Commando too.
Yeah.
But Mac and Billy, I love those characters. But Mac, love this character. And Dylan going after I just love that whole sequence. Mac, of all the guys, seemed like he might be able to pull it off. He might be able to get the Predator. Yeah. You just had a moment where you believed it because he kind of was tracking him.
Yeah.
And, of course, it doesn't work out, and they both just get wasted in pretty crazy ways. Mac just gets lured into a trap, and he's toast. And then, of course, you have going down, swinging Dylan, losing an arm, but still fighting to the death. I loved it. I mean, I loved it as a kid. I watched it, recently with my son Sam. Sam loved it. It's in the DNA, man. So I thought it was a great scene, a great action sequence, one of the high water scenes of the film. Devin, what did you think about that sequence, that scene of where Mac and Dylan go after the Predator?
Well, so first off, how do you not love Mac? But I think that it's interesting, right? You said he was driven by rage, and I think that there's some truth to that. But here's one of the things that I think for maybe the first time in the film up to this point where I think we actually feel like, oh, did they get the upper hand? Like when he says, shh, and then kind of like points silently, like we think like, oh, like the tide could turn right here. Mm-hmm. And then, and then ultimately we get the little 3 laser dots on him. And that's probably the saddest loss for me in the film is because he knew he was done. There wasn't much surprise to it. He thought he had the upper hand. And then as far as Carl Weathers, quite literally being de-armed, I mean, who doesn't want to see that? I mean, what did he have? He didn't have Uzis. What did he have? Like MP9s or something, like, MP5s or whatever?
Yeah, MP5s or something. Yeah, something like that.
So, I mean, great sequence there. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's wonderful, like action filmmaking, and John McTiernan is like hitting all cylinders as a director. I think around the trap being sprung to the end of the film, I feel like it's just breakneck pacing, and it's the film at that point had been fast paced, but I think at this point on, it's just like one thing after another, and so you flash to like, Arnold's character, Dutch, and then the rest of the survivors, which is, Billy, the injured Pancho, and Anna. They're trying to make a run for it. And then we need to talk about Billy a little bit, because I think Billy is the type of character that as kids and as teenagers, everyone thought he was probably, if you didn't think Arnold was, he's probably the coolest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that kind of senses what's going on. He can track things. He has an awareness about him. He has a gigantic freaking knife. And, you have this moment where he gets on the tree, turns around on this tree bridge as everyone's escaping. He pulls off his necklace. I don't even know what's going on with that. Wraps it around his arm, then cuts his freaking chest with his knife, and he's just like, I am going to stay here and fight. Bring it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was disappointed that I didn't get to watch it.
Well,
watch the fight between the Predator and Billy. But maybe that's for the best. But Carl, what did you think about Billy as a character, but also his going out scene is just, it's just ballsy, man. It's just so cool.
Well, what I thought, because I misremember things. I'm getting old, Jeremy. So a lot of times I'll watch a movie and I forget the order of who died and who, what, when, where. And going into it, I thought, okay, Billy's going to die first because he's the only guy that gives him a chance. Like the Predator's going to be looking at him, measuring him up, and go, all right, this dude can kind of sense me, see me. If I linger too long, he's going out first. The others I can pick off after he's gone.
Yeah.
He may help the others. So I thought he was going to go first. And so then him getting to like basically, I know they were carrying Pancho, but second to last really.
Right.
So it's like, and you say out you regret not seeing the actual fight. And one, you talk about the necklace. Two, one, it's another reason. It's another part of this movie where they didn't over-explain things. They just let the audience go, look, this is you're here. Don't worry about it. Other movies would have over-explained. They would have had a story on the helicopter. This necklace means blah.
That's right. Right.
Yes.
And so I kind of like not just being over-explained to. It's like I could use some imagination myself.
Yes.
But you're disappointed not seeing the fight, and I kind of had the same feeling. But then I thought, well, could you do it justice? Because it's like you either, if he puts up a good fight, then you're like, well, he wounded it, and Arnold's kind of, or if he gets taken so quick, you're like, no, he wouldn't have gone that quick. So it's one of those things that if you gave the details, the audience is not going to be like, they're going to be disappointed either way.
Yeah.
So you just leave it to their imagination, and you let Arnold kind of get all the glory at the end.
Yes, totally agree. His death scream, is like it scares you, because at that point Billy is probably one of the more, like you said, Carl, like he's one of the more capable ones. And when he dies screaming this yell through the jungle, it's like, oh no, like they're not going to survive. Devin, what do you think about Billy? Like the scene on the tree, I think it's one of the best scenes of the film. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, right. I think this is the character that, as far as personal faves, Billy's there for the reasons that you said. And I said off air before we started recording is like, I just identify with the bring it on, frickin' cut myself, primal scream every freaking morning when I walk into a classroom. So,
your students are coming in and you're bleeding and you're like,
or back to school night when the parents come, whatever. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that this was just kind of foreshadowing of my own life as far as this particular scene. So I am down for this. It's interesting though, because you bring up, we don't get to see it, the fight between Billy and the Predator, and I go back and forth. I like there's something to be said. If we don't see it, we kind of have, in my opinion, this, I think, belief that like Billy gave it a good fight. Like regardless, he gave it a good fight. So there's part of me is like, I would want to see it, but I think by not seeing it, we allow the character of Billy to kind of be elevated, and we know he went out with every fiber of his fighting being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And there's always that part of you is like, I don't want Billy to to die, and it's such a effective scene. I think John McTiernan made the right choice. Mm-hmm. So we get to this moment in the movie, and there was something going on the actual production. And like Carl said at the beginning of the show, Jean-Claude Van Damme was hired to be the Predator. There's some pictures of him on set. There are multiple stories about what happened. But he got fired. Van Damme got fired. And production was halted. They had filmed, I think, for over a month, maybe a month and a half. So they got most of what we are talking about done. And then they took this hiatus. And what's crazy is it lasted 8 months, guys.
Whoa.
Like this break was an 8-month break. Mm-hmm. During that time, Arnold filmed The Running Man, which we've done on the show.
Well,
he did The Running Man, which includes Jesse Ventura.
Yes.
Yeah. So Ventura goes with him. They make The Running Man. And then he comes back, and the reasoning is there's issues with the monster. That's what that was the line that was being used. We had issues with the monster. We had to delay filming. Of course, Stan Winston was brought in for some design work. They got a new actor to play him in this climactic thing. But it's almost oftentimes when you think about movies, a great example would be World War Z that came out about 10 years ago. And in that Brad Pitt zombie movie, they had so many issues with the filming that they actually halted production, and then completely, there was supposed to be a massive war in Moscow in the original World War Z. Instead, they completely reshot the ending, spending millions of dollars. They reshot the ending to be a little more intimate, where it's in like a facility, like a disease control facility.
Yeah.
And, that's what they ended up doing. And a lot of people say it saved the movie. This is similar in some ways, although there wasn't an ending shot, but the break helped them to kind of reset. It feels like a different movie, kind of like World War Z, because it's one thing, and then all of a sudden you get very intimate at the end. I think it works for World War Z, and I think it works for this one too. Yeah. I think it does feel a little bit different when it becomes Arnold versus the Predator. Mm-hmm. I love the final battle. I love Arnold's preparation for it. I love what leads to him kind of figuring out how he can even the playing field. Of course, everyone's wiped out except Anna. Arnold falls into the water. Predator pursues him. Great sequence, but Arnold gets in the mud. The mud kind of cloaks his heat signature, so the alien the Predator can't quite see him. And then Arnold gets ready for war. And I love how he issues the challenge of the scream on top of the tree, like, bring it. I just think it's great setup. The whole battle is wonderful. It's well shot. I just think it's great action filmmaking. It's one of the high water marks, I think, of Schwarzenegger's career. For you guys, and Devin, I want to start with you.
Yeah.
Just general thoughts about the final battle, but really I want to get at, does it work for you? Because there is a sense where there's some tonal shifting going on. It doesn't bother me. I think it actually makes the movie amazing. Does the final battle work? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no question. I think, one of the things that, again, we're combining this kind of montage of Schwarzenegger preparing, right? Which I think that there's something very primal that we dig, right? It's no longer about the minigun, but we're literally taking the gunpowder and wrapping it in leaves and things like that. And so I think that there's something super primal and cool about that. I think that, once again, let's bring Alan Silvestri's soundtrack and score back into this, because for those of you that are unfamiliar, like, he's the guy that did the Rocky soundtracks. And this is the equivalent of like the Rocky training montage, right? This is what we're treated to as the viewer. And so I think that it's getting hyped. And then, going to the yell, right? What do we see? We see not only like this blazing fire by the darkness of the jungle, and Schwarzenegger in this very primal. He's got his spear that he fashioned there, and he's got his shirt off, of course. He's got his mud on. And the Predator's just kind of, maxing and relaxing in his little bachelor pad, and then he heats up his laser thing, right? Because he realizes it is officially on. The opening bell has rung, and round one is about to go down. And so what could be better than that? This is the crescendo of what we've been waiting for the previous 90 minutes or whatever.
Carl, what are your thoughts on the final battle?
Final battle. I want to kind of step back a little bit to the Jean-Claude Van Damme stuff, just if that's okay for a second. Because, the monster was unworkable for one thing, but just like watching video of the effects guys who made the suit, it was just funny because it was like Jean-Claude's fresh off the boat from Brussels, he's got kind of a future, maybe they're going to try him here. Well, he thinks he's going to be using all his martial arts prowess, and it just doesn't work in the suit.
Right.
But even funnier to me, and that all is understandable. But even funnier to me is how they were like, I guess no one, and maybe there was a language barrier of translation, but it's like they act like, well, no one evidently explained anything to Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Right.
So he shows up, and I think we're all familiar with CGI characters now, and we'll see it behind the scenes, and they'll be wearing like a green suit to have like the chroma key, Well, because the jungle's green, the opposite end of the color wheel is red, so he had to have they just made a foam red monster costume. That's kind of the outline of the Predator. They didn't tell Jean-Claude what they were doing. This wasn't common usage, I guess, back then. He's putting on this red foam suit thinking that's how the actual monster is going to look in the movie, and is like, this is terrible. This is awful. I look like a superhero, and so part of it, he hated the costume. It wasn't comfortable. It didn't work. But also he thought, this is terrible looking. What kind of movie is this going to be? Not realizing how they were going to use that to... That was just for the cloaked sequences of the movie, and they had another costume for the other stuff. So that part was, to me, hilarious at how they were just like, Jean-Claude, did no one tell you what was happening here? So anyway,
I think it's actually a little bit more funny, Carl, that the fact that Jean-Claude Van Damme would turn his nose up at the quality of the film. But continue.
Oh, yeah. Well, he did. If he could write it poorly, that's fine. If somebody else did, then he'll hold his nose up. But the final battle, everything you guys said, it's awesome. I think a lot of it is we see that for most of the movie, Dutch he's in charge, and he's got other people he's got to worry about. Right. And I think once it gets down to him, it's kind of like, okay, I'm making a different decision now because it's just my survival. I'm not responsible for other people. Kind of like when he was going to go after Mac, Dylan said, no, you go. And that thing, but it was also showing the burden that was on Dutch. Like, I've got to take care of all these people. And, he's yelling at Billy. He's carrying Poncho, getting Ann out of the way. Billy stopped on the tree. Billy, let's go. Billy, let's go. At some point, he's got to go. All right, Billy's made his choice. I got to keep moving. But I think, once it got down to, okay, it's just me and what I can come up with on my own. And then to have, and have, of course, it not go it almost go right and not go according to plan, but him to be clever enough to see, okay, I can still make this work. And, you know, added some tension. My wife always comes in at the end of these movies when I'm rewatching, and I'm trying to tell her the whole setup to this point. But then she's like, "Oh, he's got to come through that little hole. Okay, go. No, he turned around. Come back through the hole." You know, like, she gets into like 5 minutes and loves it. But anyway, it's like, okay, yeah. And then, but then he makes it work, and then this is the very end. It's kind of like that PTSD he's showing as we just kind of fly off in the sunset. He's not like a victorious hero smoking the cigar anymore. There's actual a toll on him. Yeah. Also, I kind of, I thought was a fitting ending too.
Yeah, it's such a great sequence. Just McTiernan and what he does so well is he sets up the battlefield.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we, like you said, like your wife walked in without any context and is like, "Oh, he has to go through there to get the trap." Like, that's direction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just to being able to place everything where it needs to be and helping the audience understand the battlefield. And that's brilliant. The fight is awesome. And then Arnold comes through, he thinks. And then I love the countdown. Like, the Predator's like, "Well, fuck you. I'm going to just blow us both up," you know? And Arnold piecing together the countdown, and, of course, he makes the run for it and the explosion, and then you're whisked away. I've always been bummed that he never made a sequel. I think for any of his franchises besides Terminator, I think this one deserved him to be in the sequel, and I've always been bummed out about it. Like, Devin, do you feel similarly, or do you feel like it's good that he's just one and done? I always felt like this would have been a great series for him.
Yeah, I don't know, right? That's always the risk. Whenever we start going back to the well, you run such a risk of, watering down the original that is often so powerful by a very large amount in many cases. And so I'm okay with this as being a one-off. But here is something, though, that obviously the character of the Predator itself sprung a comic series, sprung its own intellectual property and franchise. And we were like, then we even started to like cross over into Predator v Alien and stuff. So to me, it's really interesting how viewers love the character of the Predator so much and the mythology of that we want more of that, regardless of whether Schwarzenegger's part of the puzzle or not.
Yeah, it's amazing. Carl, what do you think? Do you think this would have been a worthwhile Schwarzenegger kind of action vehicle for him to keep making movies with Predator?
Yeah, I think so. If he could have sort of kept himself out of the way to a degree. I mean, we talked about he did have enough influence to sort of change the scope of it. And I think that was a good decision. And if he was really part of that, I think well done, because I can't imagine this just being as a one person versus the alien type thing. I mean, I think taking out the other 6 guys and the guys before just kind of shows you the odds you're up against, and it's one by one picking them off. I mean, I like that a lot. As Arnold only got more powerful, I guess, as far as a movie star after that time. So I don't know if he would have cheesed it up more, because, like I said, a lot of this it's a little bit different than the later Arnold Schwarzenegger movies as it comes along. There's the one-liners, again, like I said earlier, it's part of the thing that you kind of like, and but it's like it's all the time. And at some point you're like, okay, we get it. There's some puns here. But if they could have, you keep the whole team together as far as writer, director, and Arnold, and we don't get bogged down with the other stuff that kind of comes into some of those other action movies. I think we could have, but I also think that his ego may have gotten to a point where he was going to maybe make some changes in a different direction that may have cheapened it, made it, not as good. So,
right. Yeah, it makes sense. It's one of those, for me, it's the what if. It is like, I wonder, what if he did make sequels? Would they? Because Predator 2 is Predator 2. Like, some people loved it. I thought it was not good. I was super disappointed when I saw it. You wonder, like, well, what would it have been like if he would have been in it? And there's always, and get John McTiernan back, to make it. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about the music we would be listening to if we went to the movie theater and left. So we're going into Lock It In and Rip the Knob Off.
Are you reeling in the years? They say the harder rock and roll is to beat than all-time rock and roll 90s
95.5.
Lock it in and rip the knob off.
All right, so it's that time. What song do we play on the car radio on the way from the movies that best sums up our feelings about it? The movie came out in June 12th of 1987. I'm going to just throw out what I would be listening to first to give you guys a second to collect your thoughts. Pick something better. But, man, there's some great songs on the top 100 list at this time. My pick is the Bryan Adams in the Heat of the Night. Here's some lyrics. I was caught in the crossfire of a silent scream where one man's nightmare is another man's dream. Pull the covers up high and pray for the morning light because you're living alone in the heat of the night. Whoa. I mean, there's other lyrics. You can run or you can fight. Yeah, that's right. Better leave it alone in the heat of the night. I just think this is what I'm listening to. There's nothing like Bryan Adams in the 1980s. Wow. And this is playing on my car radio as I leave the parking lot. Carl, what about you? What are you going to be listening to as you leave the theater?
Jeremy, I disagree with your assessment of this week's top 100. I mean, I want to take a triple laser pointed bomb alien device and blow a hole through the chest of this week's. I want to pull the spine and skull out of the top 100 list. I want to burn it. I honestly, I recognize some of the names of the people, but a lot of songs I was like, what in the hell is this song? What? And so honestly, I mean, the only one it's awful. It's awful. So I'm going to go with, because like a Terminator, I am from the future, and I realize that the one thing that this movie is missing is Hasta La Vista, baby. So I'm going with Jodie Watley. I'm looking for a new love.
Whoa!
For that line and that line only. I want to rewrite the movie. I want to change it like Back to the Future, and so instead of a sullen Dutch flying in a helicopter, he just crushes before he kicks the spike. It's Hasta La Vista, baby, and kicks the spike, crushing it, and then just smokes a cigar and walks off.
Wow!
So that is why, and I swear, I wish I could find. I mean, I think that the song actually got Hasta La Vista, baby in Terminator 2. The best I could find was that they just said that's just something that Cameron would say on the phone all the time, so it was a joke. He would say Hasta La Vista, baby on the phone, and it was a joke. It wasn't supposed to be an iconic line. But I think that he only said it on the phone because he had heard the song a few years earlier. So gotcha. I'm looking for a new love.
See, I would think you would have gone with I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For by U2, thinking of the Predator. He's obviously looking for something. He's empty inside, and murder he thinks can fill his empty soul, and he's not doing it.
I love that song. I mean, there are some good songs, but it's not like a couple of weeks ago when it was like Dune. Every song fit, and there was a lot of good songs. Yes. Here, there are some good songs, but there wasn't a whole lot about a predator hunting you down. Anyway, so Hasta La Vista, baby.
All right, Devin, what about you?
Well, listen, I just want to apologize to our listeners for waiting this long into the show to really go meta on you all. What we need to understand about this fine piece of celluloid history is it is not an action movie. It is actually what I would consider really it's not quite the rom-com that would come to notoriety in the 90s, but this is a love story. This is an absolute love story. And so talking about someone that ruled the airwaves of the 1980s, in particular for movie soundtracks, I'm going to go with Kenny Loggins, Meet Me Halfway. And listen, meet me halfway across the sky, out where the world belongs to only you and I. This is clearly a love letter from Arnold to the Predator. And I think we may need to re-record this entire podcast because this is probably the biggest theme that we overlooked.
Thank you, Devin.
Yes.
I feel corrected and humbled just by that deep and profound analysis. It's beautiful. So those are our picks. Listeners, let us know what you think. You can find us on Twitter at Live in the Past, and you can just say, hey, this is what you missed. This is the song you should be listening to. We still need to do There Could Be Only One. So we're gonna go into that segment where we pick the single best thing about the movie. So here's that segment.
There can be only one.
All right, guys. So there's so much to pick from. There can be only one. Is what is the single best thing? Character. It could be a moment. It could be a scene, line. It could be the theme that Devin just unpacked for us. It could be a song, the music of the movie. What's the best thing about it? For me, it's Billy on the tree. I love that moment. I wish I could be a Billy sometimes. And I'll tell you guys a quick story. I was taking a group of kids. It was a summer seminar program at the school I was working at early in my career. And we did this kind of outdoors education program, and we called it Summer Seminar. And we were in the Shenandoah Valley. We were going to hike a mountain called Old Rag, and we were at the base of the mountain. And we were camping the night, and then that morning we were going to start hiking. It was like 5 we were going to leave. And I am sleeping out of my tent. I'm sleeping on the ground, no tent, on a sleeping bag. I was hard back then when I was 34.
Wow.
And I'm sleeping out, and I hear a man talking. And I'm like, oh, God, is there some hikers coming through that are talking to these kids, these high school kids? Because I could hear the voices of the girls. But remember, I'm kind of half asleep. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, is this real? Am I? And so I thought about Billy. Sometimes you just have to make a stand. Whoa. And I shouted at this figure that was about 20 feet away, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" And it was one of the boy students. He was 16 years old. And he was like, "Mr. Scott." His voice kind of cracked. I was like, "Oh, sorry." I thought you were messing with the girls. Sorry. I went and laid back down. Very embarrassed. It became the joke of the trip.
Love it.
What the hell are you doing was said often to me for the remainder of the trip. Anyways, I love Billy for making a stand. Sometimes you just have to act tough. That's my favorite moment. Devin, what's yours?
Well, I mean, listen, favorite character in the film, Painless. Who doesn't love a minigun that you can tote around in the jungle? If there was ever any particular instrument that just called to the adrenaline of a teenager, it indeed is a minigun. I have to go back, and you kind of touched on this earlier. If we're going to just take one moment with the minigun, it's got to be Jesse the Body when he rips the tarp off of the minigun and starts blowing things away. Second to that, though, is the extended of that where he drops the line. And Jeremy and Carl, maybe you guys can comment on this, but when Jesse the Body says, "Dug in like an Alabama tick," I'd love your commentary on that. That's something us West Coasters don't quite get, but apparently ticks get dug in Alabama.
They do. Carl, do you want to answer that first? Have you ever had a tick
they don't want to come out. That's for sure. I mean, this is no. I'm going to pull a leech off from Stand By Me. I mean, this is a whole process of, but
why Alabama? Because obviously ticks in California don't want to come out either. No. So what is it about the Alabama tick that makes it so noteworthy?
There's less marijuana in our system, so when the tick sucks on the blood in California, they're like, whoa, they don't care. They let go. They're like, whatever. I got enough. The Alabama ticks are like, I'm getting this blood. I ain't coming out. Roll Tide or War Eagle or whatever. So that's
the California ticks get that THC and then just get hungry. I get it. All right.
Yeah. They need the munchies.
Yeah.
That's it. I can't. Carl, you answered it perfectly. Carl, what's your favorite thing about this movie?
Well, Devin also mentioned the minigun, and the funny part about that is that it's the guy who was training them, the actual military trainer, was like, telling Bill Duke, okay, you do it for like 30 seconds at a time. You just gotta, do a few shots, let go, do a few shots, let go, because otherwise you will melt the barrel down. And
right.
So,
yeah. Right.
And then he got it, and he just went, and he just like shot for like minutes, and he's like he went through the whole clip, and he's like, okay, this is an action movie, okay, fine, and also when they're blowing all of the leaves off the tree, it's like. They said they're shooting in Puerto Vallarta, which is the plants there in the jungle are deciduous, which I think means they don't make decisions very well. But anyway, they had to they had to put more actual fake leaves up there really to have a bunch of stuff to shoot down because there wasn't really enough to shoot down. So just a couple little facts there, just to kind of throw those in. But the best individual moment was just the unmasking of the alien and him opening that face and it just being gross and you're one ugly MFer type deal. It's like that. I think a lot of people. I remember sitting with a group of people, and them actually oohing and gross kind of thing going on. So it was underutilized maybe, but it kind of came up one moment, and everybody kind of saw the actual face and was disgusted by it. And so I think that was a really good part of the movie.
It's a good call.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Man, Predator's special. It really is. It just talking about it, I'm like, I probably should just go watch it again this afternoon. It's just so good. It's so good. And hopefully, they made one in 2018. Hopefully we'll get another, because it's not a good movie. And hopefully we'll get another good Predator movie at some point in our lifetime. That would be nice. Hey, you guys can find us at Twitter, one of the many dumpster fires. It's called social media, at LIVIN the past. You can also find us in a less dumpster fiery place called Patreon, where you can get more content from us, and that's patreon.com, living in the past, LIVININ the past. Facebook, Living the Past. You can find us there. Hey, our next episode, guys, we're going to be running into Thanksgiving. It's Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I'm excited. It's been a while for me to revisit this film, so I'm super excited. Do you guys, was that on your rotation as a kid?
I will answer that in 3 words. Those aren't pillows. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. It's a hilarious movie. Yeah, hilarious. And Kevin Bacon. So what can you...
That's right. That's right. Hey, our Patreon show, What You Talking About? We're in November, the month of November. We're going to be doing a little Norvember film noir. We're going to be talking about the film noir of the 1980s and just some of the neat movies that were made that are kind of this, that kind of fall into that genre of film noir. So keep an eye out for that and hop over to Patreon if you're interested. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you in a couple weeks with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. See you guys.